Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the channel. Hope that you guys are having a great day. It is a cold one here for sure. As you can see, we just got 7 or 8 inches of snow. Well, actually, I guess it's really not that much, is it? It doesn't look, that's what they said, but it doesn't look like that. Maybe 3 or 4. Typical guys lying about how many inches they got. My apologies for the sparse uploads lately. I just got back from Florida. I was down in Florida. It was 83 degrees and sunny literally every day. Carbon doors. You had fun? Yeah. It was awesome, and then I came right back into this, so definitely Florida was a lot better. And you know, thank you to anybody who lives in Florida and just anybody that I met down there. Really nice people. Some people knew who I was, some people didn't, but everybody came up and said hi. I had the car with me, and I will be uploading a video shortly. I also filmed something really cool that I think you guys are gonna love. I drove a certain car down there, which it blew me away. But yeah, everybody was so nice, and I feel like maybe, you know, people are happier in Florida. And I say the same thing. I go to North Carolina, and it's like everybody's much more friendly, I think, than up here in PA. And maybe that's why, because people are happier. I see you over there. I see you throwing snowballs. Then you get guys like my neighbor, who is the nicest person in the world, so I can't really complain. But anyway, today's upload is going to be all about the Blazer. I know I kind of left you hanging. I uploaded about it. I was down in Florida. I made that video. Like, I picked up the Blazer on the day that I was leaving. I was talking to those people for a couple days on Facebook Marketplace, and they finally got back to me. Like, that was like 5 hours before our flight left. So I filmed all that I could with it, and then we had to hit the road. I was really excited. You know, I wanted to get right into the content with it, and you know, the feedback was great. I got probably 200 or 300 DMs from you guys on Instagram about like, hey, you know, I have that body style truck. And the cool thing about it is that all these trucks are the same, whether you have a 1500, a Tahoe, a Blazer, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to dive into that in a second as well. But they're all the same vehicle underneath. So any mod that I do or anything that I'm talking about really applies to so many vehicles. Like, so millions and millions of these things have been sold. So really, it's something that, like, if you don't have one, I'm sure somebody you know, like a friend of yours or whatever, somebody has this body style of GM truck. Let me jump back to the Blazer Tahoe part for a second, because I did see some people saying, you know, why do you call it a Blazer? Isn't it a Tahoe? Well, it's both, but really to me, it is the true blue full-size Blazer. So in 1995, this was the Blazer, the full-size one. And then in 1995, they changed it to Tahoe. And then the only Blazer was the little one, the S10 Blazer. Now that's, I mean, to me, that's a Blazer too in its own way. Especially the Blazer ZR2 was really cool back in the late 90s. And early, I think even early 2000s. But this to me is the true, real, like, full-size Blazer. And it was for 1990, you know what, I think it was 1989 through 94, they called this truck the Blazer. And then for whatever reason in 1995, they decided to call this the Tahoe. So this one is a 97, therefore it is called a Tahoe, but it is a Blazer, and it's the full-size truck. And to me, I keep saying, like, the real big, the big one, the truck Blazer, because this is on a truck chassis, the full-size GM 1500 truck chassis, and that's what it is, the same engine and everything. So this is like, you know, you think of the old K5 Blazer, well, this is the next one up. This is the full-size Blazer as well for its time. So really, you can call it whatever you want, Blazer, Tahoe, but I think Blazer is cooler, and it really, I mean, like, that's what it really is. They just decided in 1995 to change the name, but it really is a Blazer. In this upload, I want to talk about 2 main things, but really a few things. Number 1, the first main point is I want to talk about why I wanted this truck so badly. I could have bought any truck for a project truck, but I really wanted a 90s GM. And I already kind of talked about it really because it was super, super common. That was number 1, because I felt like a lot of you guys had something like this and you could relate and follow along and you might enjoy it more. And also, number 2, as you may or may not know if you've been with the channel for a while, my first ever vehicle was an '89 Silverado that I bought in high school for $1,200, followed by a 1992 Silverado single cab short bed, which is basically the same size as this vehicle. And I loved it. I loved them. I loved everything about them. I liked having an old truck. I thought it was cool, even though that, I mean, at that time, that's all I could afford anyway. I couldn't get anything newer. But I loved it. And I fell in love with those trucks way back then. And my love has really kind of stayed there. I've always felt like these trucks, the 90s GMs, were always kind of like just cool, and they were timeless. Like, to me, this doesn't look old. I mean, you can tell it's not modern, but it doesn't look bad and outdated. Like, it just looks like an old classic truck. So I love the look, I love the reliability, the durability, and I love the fact that, you know, a lot of people have one. Those are the two main reasons. Number one, I had one back in the day, basically just like this, so I love them. And number two, a lot of people got them, so I feel like a lot of people can relate. And that's one thing I really want to do with this build. I know YouTube, like, a lot of people start out with something they want as a practical, regular build, like a cheap project, right? And that was me too with the Grandpa Vet. I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna keep it cheap and do stuff at home. And then you get into it and you start thinking, well, if I'm gonna do this, I might as well do that. And if I'm gonna spend this money, I might as well do this. And pretty soon you got a car that is gonna cost a normal person like 50 grand or 100 grand because, you know, as a YouTuber, a lot of us can get sponsored parts. But you know, you look at any of the builds going on YouTube, I mean, these things are really, really expensive. Even your more basic ones are, you're talking like 30, 40, 50 grand. And to a regular person, even more, not to mention like the labor cost and everything like that. So people get carried away, and I get it, you know, I get why people do it, because on YouTube, you feel like you gotta compete, you gotta do something crazy. But for this one, you know, I truly wanted something different. I wanted a true cheap build, you know, something that anybody could do at home with minimal money. I bought the truck for $1,500. I was out the door for $1,800 with taxes, tags, a new plate, and all that good stuff. And that's how I want to keep it. You know, nothing crazy, just having fun. Like, this is something for a younger person. Like in high school, you could probably do this with a decent job. College, early, you know, late teens, early 20s. I'm really looking forward to that because that's what I did. And I mean, really, there's something to be said for having fun with less. I mean, my Duramax, for example, I've spent, my God, 70 or 80 grand on that truck, I'm sure, at least. And I love it. It's perfect to me. But, you know, you can really have fun. You know, you don't have to have like $7,000 wheels either. Every YouTube project, whatever, it just always seems to end up the same way, like way crazier than they ever intended and completely unobtainable to the average person. Running good, baby, running good. Number one, this is the goods, boys, the good part right here. The tried and true, super durable, super reliable, the AK-47 of engines. You know, might not do one thing great or perfectly, but it does everything really well, or pretty well, and it's you can depend on it. This is the Chevy 350 V8, of course, 5.7 liter V8. It's great. I don't know the power and torque. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter. Does the truck move? Yep, that's all that counts. Got plenty to get out of its own way, and that's really all that matters. This engine is, once again, the AK-47 of engines. It's super durable if you take care of it. There's a reason why everybody swaps a Chevy small block into everything, because you can count on it. It's cheap, parts are cheap, and it's easy to work on. Even I can replace a lot of parts on this engine, and that's saying a lot. I have issues like here and there, like any truck will, especially an old truck with almost 250,000 miles on it, a gas truck. But again, if you take care of it, and I don't even mean like, you know, you have to do meticulous maintenance and everything like that. Like if you change the oil once in a while and you fix little things when they go wrong, like this engine will not ever let you down. Super simple and super reliable. And that's what's great about them. The simplicity, I think, is its biggest strength. You know, it's so simple, and it's basically the same design for so many years that, you know, parts are literally like a few dollars. Like, you can replace things in this truck so cheaply. You can get valve covers at Pep Boys if you need them, and gasket kits, it's like 50 bucks for that. And because it's so common, they sell parts like that. Like, you don't have to order parts for this. If you go to your local AutoZone or Pep Boys or O'Reilly's, whatever, pretty much it's a guarantee they're gonna have whatever you need already in stock, and that's great. Especially if you're a younger kid, it's your daily driver. You know, you don't have time to wait. Like, if you gotta go to work or school, you don't have time to wait a week to ship parts. So it's really nice to have everything in stock pretty much at your local place, unless you live in the absolute middle of nowhere. They also sound fantastic, and I'm gonna show you that, not in today's upload, but very soon on the channel. I'm gonna show you, you don't even have to spend any money on an exhaust to make it sound good. More info to come. Inside of the truck, and I apologize for the lighting. Let me check the camera. That's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, I would take it out, and I think I am going to take it out, but that's going to be a separate video. But I don't feel like standing out in the snow and walking around, so the truck is going to stay in the garage. By the way, it was in the garage the whole week when I was gone in Florida. I think that might be the first time this truck has ever been in a garage since it was new. Mechanically, like, all pretty much good to go. The brakes are a little spongy, but running and driving, it really truly runs and drives great, better than I thought it would. But let's get into the bad. So here's one bad. My seat is broken. So this thing has power seats, and they don't work at all. Actually, it does go up and down a little bit. Yeah, that works. But yeah, it's not working great. And when you get it into a position, it doesn't stay there. So like, I was driving down the road and my seat is moving around, and I'd like to have it much farther up. For me, I kind of like to sit up on the pedals a little bit more, and I can't do that. So yeah, the driver's seat broken. We're gonna have to fix that for sure. Yeah, I can just go all the way back. You know, I can be like one of those guys and drive around like this. It's sweet. And you know, I see people drive like this going down the road. I'm just like, how do you see? So we actually have a CD player. Now this here, your head unit, you would see this exact same thing if you had a 2004 Corvette. You could spend 60 grand on a Corvette, you would get this exact same stereo. We have push button 4-wheel drive, pretty cool. We got a button for the rear hatch, that works, which thank God it does, because we have no other way to get into the hatch. Got a glove box, the light here. One really cool thing about it you would not expect, I didn't expect, was we have the original owner's manual. I think that's my registration work. We have the original owner's manual, Chevrolet light duty truck, 1997, baby. But this is really cool. This is all the info here on it. Chevrolet Tahoe Suburban. I don't know what this is. This could be, I actually have not legitimately looked at this, so I don't know what this is. Did Chevrolet and Geo. Chevrolet and Geo. So Geo was an off-brand of really crappy GM vehicles back in the day. And this was from New York. Well, Center Beach, Long Island, New York. Okay. And there you go. They said it was a 2-owner, which I didn't really believe, because who gives a shit when you're paying 1,500 bucks. But wow, this is the original closed-end motor vehicle lease agreement. Look at this. So this thing back in the day, total monthly payments was $17,494. I don't know, hopefully you guys can see this. This is really cool, actually. Sales tax, 1,500 bucks. Itemization of amount subject to lease charge, 32,000. It can't be, this could not have been purchase option price. Wow. I don't think this thing was 32 grand back in 1997. Maybe it was. Maintenance booklet, some maintenance records. I don't see the sticker, unfortunately, as I look through here, but that would be awesome. The original owner, Colleen Blank, got this truck inspected at Click Lewis in 1997, and that's not the vehicle date, that's the invoice date, 1997. Click Lewis still using the same paper. 32 grand, that is insanely expensive for 1997. I can't believe it, honestly. I mean, I feel like it is, I don't know. We also have some other stuff in here. We have some change. We have a cassette tape. Look at that. It's a salsa tape. English salsa. Anyway, that's that, and that's pretty cool for sure. Now the windows work, everything else works, so that's pretty cool. Again, the hatch works. It does have a full-size spare here. Open that baby up. It's got a full tailgate, just like a real truck. That opens up, and there you go. So the back has definitely been used. The carpet is pretty much destroyed, but I am going to get it professionally detailed to see if, I don't know what that is, to see if they can make it look nice, which I'm sure they can get a lot of this out. Headliner pretty good, interior lights work. My seat belt, I forgot to touch on, is kind of like you barely pull on it and it locks. Like you pull on it really lightly and it still locks. So that's kind of janky. Steering feels good. little loose, but nothing abnormal for an old truck. Now on to the most important thing I can talk about for you younger guys out there when you're buying a truck, especially if you live in the Northeast, really anywhere, but of course, you know, we're way more affected up here, and that is rust. Now I looked at the frame when I bought the truck, and the frame looks good. The frame looks solid. I didn't look it over too closely, but it looks okay. But as you can see, the body, this truck is very rusty. Right here, we got a big hole. Now this would not pass PA inspection. We have inspections here in Pennsylvania. If you have a rust hole, that's not gonna be satisfactory. Now somehow this truck did get inspected. They must know a guy, right? Which is unbelievable. Yes, this would not pass. Now this is just outer body rust, and this is pretty easy to fix. You can get these panels, very common on the 90s GM trucks, really any truck but 90s GMs. Especially, or I mean any older truck. I hate to say like, oh, it's common on GMs, because every freaking truck is gonna rust, especially if it's been exposed to salt. It's gonna happen. But you can buy either a new panel, very common to see the cab corner rust on the pickup trucks. You can buy the new rocker panel, you can buy the new bedside. Good part about the body rust is this is not, you know, structural. So you can have somebody put a plate over this and weld it. You could Bondo it really to be super cheap. You know, if you know somebody who can weld, you can fix this very easily, and they can sand it down and actually make it look pretty nice. So it doesn't have, you don't have to really worry about it. This is not really affecting the structural integrity of the truck. However, the frame is what we'll talk about in a second that you really got to be careful on. But this really isn't a big deal. It looks ugly. If you let it go for a long time, of course, eventually, like, yes, it's going to eat away your whole truck. But you can fix this really cheap, and it's not a huge problem. Also very common to see it on pickup trucks a little bit more, right over the wheel well on the bedside, because dirt gets hooked right up in here, or not really hooked, stuck. Dirt gets stuck up in this lip, and it eats it away from the inside out. So that's a little tip to just definitely check on the rust of the vehicle. But if you see rust like that and it's a good deal, like this truck was, again, $1,500. I ain't worried about that for $1,500. On to the really important part, the frame. Now for you young guys out there, even if a truck is a really good deal, if it's got holes in the frame and the frame isn't solid, don't buy it. Really, take my advice, don't buy it. No matter how good of a deal you're getting, because you can find a good deal like this truck. You can find a good deal with a good frame. Now the danger is, yes, you know, frames can be fixed. You can weld a plate on them. You can put supports in them. If you get the right person who really knows what they're doing, you can fix it and make it even stronger than factory. But more often than not, once that frame has been compromised, it's just not safe. And I'm a guy who, you know, made mistakes as a high school kid. And, you know, really, it's all fun and games until you die, because you only get one life, right? So if you're going down the road and you get in a minor fender bender and your truck folds in half because you have a rusty, crappy frame, you know, was that really worth it? So really, I would caution you strongly on getting a truck that has a really rusty frame. Now this, you might say, well, that looks rusty, Mike. This is all good. This is just surface rust. You can see very solid though. No holes in the frame whatsoever. You can actually see black there, the original coating. So the frame on this truck is really good. I'm gonna go underneath here. You can see, now this is the torsion bar cross member. So this is actually the worst rust on the truck, but even this is fine. Like this is not, you know, it's not, you're looking for pieces you can rip the frame apart with your hand, and you really can. You'd be surprised like what some trucks are held together by. Like you can literally rip a truck's frame apart by hand. This is very solid, very good. You know, yes, it's got its little surface rust here that you can chip away at, but the overall structure is fine. That's really good. So these are your torsion bars. These old GM trucks operate on a torsion bar suspension. This is when people put in a leveling kit, like they get different aftermarket keys. Well, you don't have to do that. You can actually raise your truck by yourself for free by turning these bolts here. You can raise the front end of you can level your truck just by turning these bolts. Now what aftermarket keys are, and like I wish I could show you the shape of these keys, but it's like a circle, and then it's like a point, kind of like that. And what aftermarket keys allow you to do is crank the bars up even more than the factory setting. So you get a little bit of wiggle room. You get like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches on the factory keys. You can get a lot more with aftermarket keys. But then the problem is, what you do is you jack that up, then your CV angles up front, your little axle angles, they become like shit. So if you want to lift your truck, I always recommend like do it right. But if you want to level it, you don't have to buy a leveling kit, even though they're only like $100 anyway. You can do this for free. If you want to save money, you can lift your truck for free if it has a torsion bar suspension setup. Moving on to the rust, the middle of the truck looks good. Again, actually really surprisingly clean. The torsion bars look great. Let's check out here. And again, actually we're doing this together because I haven't looked at this either. And I'm sorry if the camera angles are like, but I'm trying my best. I'll probably bleep that out because that's too inappropriate. But yeah, everything looks pretty good down here, I have to say. There's our front drive shaft. You can see the body of the truck looks good. This is just a little heat shield here, this piece, so that's a little rusty, but no big deal on that. Got a zip tie there. That's what you like to see. Yeah, the body, underneath the body of the truck looks really nice. Let's keep going on up, boys. Let's keep on moving. But this is what you want to do. Don't be afraid to get up underneath here and check everything. You want to check if there's rust, and you want to make sure everything's looking good. And I have to say, this truck is actually really, really impressive. Like really good. Like that is really good there. That cross member, that little beam there. Until you get down to here. And this side is, wow, I didn't, from like looking at it up top, you don't really notice. But yeah, this side's real. I didn't even notice this side was this bad. But yeah, we're missing like basically the whole bottom of the truck. Oh shit. Yeah, so a little bit rusty on this side. But again, this really doesn't matter too much. From what I can see, the frame looks real good. Look at these, look at the mounts for your leaf springs. That looks great. That's hardly rusted at all. This is this bad. You would expect the frame to be really eaten away, but it's not at all. Like the frame is very good. Cab mounts look good. These are your cab mounts. So this is what your cab sits on because a truck is a body on frame vehicle. Literally you have a frame, the body just sits on top of it with these mounts. And they look good. They're little like rubber cushions. I think this is where the running boards were attached. They're gone now, obviously. Which is what I would do, if you get an old truck and it's got running boards, I would take them off. It's just one more place for dirt and rust to start and collect. Lower control arm looks pretty good. A lot of times you'll see like these holes here start to form into bigger holes because these are hollow. So you get dirt and stuff inside of them and then it corrodes them away. But these are like really nice too. Your sway bar end links, tie rods, everything looks good. Axles look good. Can't really see the brakes, but this front mount here is a little bit rusty. Could probably replace that, but that's not too bad. We do have a small leak. Now the truck has been sitting for over a week, so that's not that bad, although that would appear to be oil, which is never good. But for a whole week of sitting, that's really not that big of a deal in my mind. And this side looks pretty good too. A little bit of rust on here, but again, I think that's mostly just the paint flaking off. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. And we're gonna get new shocks anyway. I'm not concerned about that. But yeah, look at this. All really good, really nice. You can see down to the bare metal there, and that looks good. Now let's move on to the back. Typically, the back is worse than the front on pickup trucks, so hopefully that is not the case. And again, I truly haven't looked at this I looked briefly, but I haven't really checked it out. So like, we're learning together on this. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, that frame looks really good. Got our back pumpkin here. Our diff, drive shaft looks okay. The shock mounts, a lot of times these you'll see because they're kind of like small pieces of metal, those get bent up a lot. They look good. It does get worse as you go backwards, and that's pretty typical on pickup trucks. Up here, we're still looking great. But this is getting a little bit more rusty. You can see back here for the rear bumper support. But honestly, still not bad at all. Now here's the towing package. We're good up here, and we're good up here too, but then we get back to the actual receiver, and it's pretty rusty. And one thing I did notice that I wanted to talk to you guys about was my trailer hitch. So when I backed into the garage, I was like, well, I don't want to accidentally hit my knee on this, my leg on this or whatever, or, you know, God forbid if my girlfriend does it, then I'd feel really bad. I feel like a real asshole. So I was going to take this out, and I looked and I was like, well, there's no pin in there. So this is just rusted in here. This receiver is rusted in. We're going to try to get that out maybe today. And then the bumper is a little bit rusty as well. You can see a lot of, I don't know how well you can see anything I'm doing here. Hopefully not too bad, but yeah, really, really rusty. So the bumper's pretty bad. See, here's a hole forming, starting a little tiny hole there. And then over here on this side, obviously real bad. Real bad. This is the whole, that's the whole license plate light. We could rip it right out if we wanted to. But you know, this is a bumper. You can get these really cheap. You can get these for under $100 brand new. I think we're gonna do an aftermarket bumper anyway, so I'm not concerned about it. But that would be, I don't know if the, oh, look at this. I don't know if the bumper would fail, and that's the reason for the rust right there. So if you were wondering why is that so bad, well, dirt gets stuck up in here. And anytime you get dirt, you know, you get moisture and then you get rust. But that's about it, you know, and I think this side's pretty good. How's our fuel looking? That looks okay. So, I mean, overall, I think this is a really, really good example for $1,500. I've seen much worse. I've seen people asking a lot more for a lot worse. I get it, you know, if you're really in a bind and you need a vehicle, I know you want to get one right away. But it took me like 3 months to find the right deal, the right truck at the right price, you know? So if you can wait, I would recommend just waiting. If you can't, I get it. But if you have time, just wait for the right one to come around, because I saw some real pieces of crap for a lot more than $1,500. And I would message these guys and they'd be like, oh, I'm not taking less than 2,400. It's like, dude, you got a clapped out 200,000 mile piece of shit. What do you mean you're not going to take less than $2,000? I saw ones like in this condition and it was like, oh, the engine doesn't work for $1,500. This one runs and drives fine. So if you can wait, definitely wait, because the right deal is out there. But overall, I'm really happy with my purchase here. I think, oh, wow, does that have no lid on it? That's a problem. This thing has no coolant in it. What? What the? That is interesting. Now, I drove it the whole way home. It was like 20 miles. Temps were all good, but it's also cold outside. So, but it would definitely even if it's cold outside with no coolant, it would definitely overheat. Not sure what that's a little bit strange. But anyway, we'll talk about that later on. Back to the point. I'm really happy with this truck. I think it's great. I saw a lot of comments saying like, wow, that's a steal. That would be, you know, like $5,000 where I'm at. And it's definitely a good find. Now, I think in PA, from what I've seen, you can get trucks a little bit cheaper. Like down south, usually I think they're a little bit more expensive. But that's because they're cleaner too, usually. Like if this was a southern truck, probably wouldn't see any rust at all on it, to be honest with you. But this is it. This is the 1997 Blazer. Why I wanted it. All the little things wrong with it, which for $1,500 I can't complain at all. I think it's great. And yeah, 233,000 miles. This is what I got. Me like actually cleaning this truck as if it matters. See, this is what happens. I buy a cheap project truck that I don't have to care about. And because I love them so much, I'm going to care about it. And I'm going to end up taking care of it and not doing fun shit with it. Hopefully, that's not too bad. Fucking epic. Hope you guys are excited for the project. A true budget build. I definitely am, as you guys know. Leave your comments below. But I hope you enjoyed this upload. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. Take care and have a great night.